Hello everyone, this is Counter YOLO, bringing you another video talking about survivability in Star Trek Online. And so this video is a video that I've alluded to quite a bit, and it is going to be my 3-5 tank build. And this is with the only ship that is able to do this, which is the summer 2018 ship, the Vorgon, whatever that name is, Dreadnought Cruiser. It has pretty good hull, but it has decently weak shields for a tank, because it has a 1.05 rating shields, and you ideally want a 1.1, as I've alluded to in other videos on this channel. But I'm going to go ahead and just quickly go through this build. For my traits and skills and stuff, it's literally the exact same as the video on Tuesday. So if you're interested in those types of things, watch that video, and there'll probably be a card right up here talking about that. Alright, so for the build itself, for weapons, it's basically the same, except you literally have this stuff in reverse from my other 3-5 build. So it's actually 3 omnidirectional beams in the front and 5 beam arrays in the back. So for my beam arrays, I have the crafted polaron beam array, the kinetic cunning beam from Omega Reputation Tier 2, and then the advanced inhibiting polaron omnidirectional, which is from Reputation. You get this guy from Tier 5 in Gamma. I think you get the console probably from like Tier 2 or Tier 3, something around there. I use this because the 2-piece bonus basically allows this console to be another tactical polaron console without needing to be in the tactical console slot, which is pretty important because you need that damage. So for my deflector, for my space set, I'm still using the Kabali 4-piece. It is decently good at survival. I would still say that the Lucari 4-piece overall is a better tanking set, but it does take a lot of grinding to get, especially at the budget end. If you're not going to do any reputation, the 3-piece Kabali with the deflector, impulse, and shields is probably going to be your best budget end, like literally just getting stuff from missions set in the entire game for tanking. The warp core is super nice, but it's from the Kabali Samsar Cruiser, which a lot of you might not have access to. So just keep that in mind. You'll probably, like, if we're talking about stuff that everyone can access, probably the Lucari 4-piece is what you'd actually probably want to go for, or at least the Lucari 3-piece of deflector, impulse, and shields. The warp core for Kabbalah for the Lucari is only really advisable to go for if you have the other 3 pieces with it. Alright, so for aft weapons, you'll want the advanced piezo-polaron beam array for its 2-piece with the Lucari's version of the universal tackle console, just because its 2-piece bonus gives you additional polaron damage, plus it already is a tactical console essentially by itself as well. Ideally, you want to have 4 additional aft weapons back here that are piezo-polarons. Because this character is still using stuff from old builds, I have this chronometric polaron here, because the chronometric omni is what I used to use in the back instead of this guy from this season. You want to replace it with another piezo-polaron beam array. Alright, so for devices, I use the red matter capacitor, subspace field modulator, and temporal negotiator. Those are my 3 go-to standards because I don't like to farm all the stuff that's technically a little bit better than those. And then for my 4th slot, for cruisers, I typically put an engine battery in there just because those drop decently frequently, and they're also easy to get around different queues or operations, as we're going to be calling them now soon, to get around them a little bit easier. For my different slots inside the game, I have hostile acquisition. It's a very good solid console with a good taunt clicky. The obfuscation screen, which is from the Walker Exploration or Light Exploration Cruiser, which is the strongest survival console in the game. The primary field projector from the Anniversary Lucari ship, which is the best tanking console in the game. Binaural infusion circuits, because it is the best raw stats lobby console in the game. Because I have an extra slot, because normally this slot would be taken, taken by Plasmonic Leech, I actually have an extra slot. And so I thought, well, I might as well just put the Tachyonic Converter in this build anyway because I don't actually need the Plasmonic Leech in here. And I don't because I have this guy right down there, but I'll get to him in just a few seconds. The DPRM console, which is really expensive for Federation characters, but it's actually decently cheap for Klingon characters and Romulan characters of either faction. So that's why I have it on here. It gives decent, good direct energy damage. Plus, it also gives me a good survival clicky as well. As I mentioned before, this is a two-piece with the advanced piezo-polaron for additional polaron damage. Plus, this is a good, solid tactical console on its own. This one, on the offset, most of these stats are completely worthless on this. However, when I was trying this out, I really needed the feel of another tactical console on this ship, which is why I added this on there. It by itself only gives 26% polaron damage, but when you have the two-piece with this guy, you actually get another 10% polaron damage, which brings it up from 26 to 36% polaron damage, which when you versus like that's 36 up there versus 39 down here, it actually is extremely close to your normal polaron tactical consoles, which you don't need in the tactical console slot. And so this is pretty valuable because when you have these combined, you have almost 5 tactical consoles worth of damage inside of this. Because even though the Morphogenetic Matrix Controller is a little bit less polaron damage, in this actual build, because your goal is to fight in the rear 250-degree arc, especially if you're going to be fighting the Herc, which you're going to want to get it in your rear 90-degree arc, it actually boosts this up by basically another 20%, and so it actually is better than a normal polaron console whenever you're fighting the Herc. So this build is extremely effective against the Herc, and it's okay versus everything else inside of the game. The reason why I'm able to not even need the Plasmonic Leech for this build is because I use this for its weapon power cost reduction for the -10 weapon power cost, and then I also have this trait called Supremacy, which gives me additional power levels. Typically, in most of my builds, you'll see that I have 2 different things in total to lower power cost reduction. This one's basically the best one in the entire game for power cost reduction because of all the extra stuff you get with the weapon power cost stuff with it. If you're going for a budget end type build, feel free to watch that console video. You'll want a fleet warp core or just a regular warp core that has weapon cost reduction, just because there are very few 4-piece sets in the game that for tanking I would say is actually worth it for having the warp core inside of it. There also is like the Bajoran warp core, which I didn't include because not all of you are going to be able to access that thing, and it's really for a lot of specific builds that would actually be effective for you. So that's basically if for these things. For hanger pets, like I told you all before, I don't really care about these. If you actually care about hanger pets and don't have a fleet to give you elite fleet pets of whatever you want, what I would recommend doing is going to your new Romulus reputation and then getting the fleet pets from there, because you're able to get elite Scorpion fighters whenever you get to tier 5 in the new Romulus reputation. Some of these rewards might actually change to tier 6. It just depends upon how some of their tier 6 changes are going to be affecting the game. It definitely sounded like from the 10.4 weekly video today that a lot more of those details, a lot more of the FAQ stuff are going to be released with the post on Friday, so tomorrow. I will be releasing a video later on that day talking about those things, what things I got wrong in my other Age of Discovery video, and what other things to look forward to as well with the expansion as well. So as I've probably said before, I apologize for giving you some misinformation on that, but I did the best with what I could and how they worded it on the posts. So on how this build actually works, the way that I would suggest is to fly into the heat of battle, get within that 10 kilometers, launch your gravity well, and then immediately go into reverse and fire these things off. because your goal is to try to hopefully get into that rear 250-degree arc, preferably for whatever your main target is, to get into that rear 90-degree arc, just so that there you are, just so that this thing does amplifies your damage even further to those targets. However, because I don't have a certain trait that's really important for this build, if you go in reverse too long, your power levels start dropping significantly. Because for your sergeant trait that you actually want is a sergeant trait that you get from specializations from the temporal operative specialization, which, unless you're a science captain, you probably don't even know that this trait exists. And if you're a science captain, most of you probably would have been like, but this trait seems utterly worthless. Why would I ever want to be in reverse for more than 5 seconds? Well, if you're a science tank, or if you're flying this ship, you'll want to use this trait actually. Because instead of getting the power drain reverse after 5 seconds, you actually get additional hull and shield regen, which is pretty substantial. Because if you actually do the math here, like after 5 seconds, you get additional, and this is how much shield regen you get per facing each second. And I need to emphasize that this is each second, because if you look at your normal shield regen, it's, oh yeah, I'm getting like 1400 shield regen per 6 seconds. Not per second. This is your normal shield regen is per 6 seconds. This guy is per second. Okay. So like if you do the math here, like even for my ship, I'm literally going to be getting as much shield regen from this trait as I actually do from the base regen from my ship itself. Like I'm actually getting more regen from that trait than I will from my ship. Basically doubling your shield regen, not only double your shield regen, but like that shield regen is much more consistent than its 6-second bursts, is extremely critical and extremely nice for tanks inside the game. Simply because most damage in the game is going to be a lot of like consistent damage. So being able to have consistent instead of spike shield regeneration will help you to survive longer and to have a lot more constant resistances to a lot of the damage inside of the game. So for my traits I'm showing off here, if you actually go to the STO Academy build, instead of attack power and Delta Prime, you will see nonlinear regression there instead. And that is why, because this thing is extremely strong. The difference between normal and improved and superior nonlinear progression deals with that recharge time on captain abilities, which is extremely critical for science captains. It's okay for engineering captains, but it's not super critical for them. But yeah, that's what you'll see there in that build instead. For stations, it's basically the same as the other one. You have 2 fire at wills, 2 attack power and deltas, tactical team. Because the ship has a Lieutenant Commander Science, you'll see Gravity Well along with Transitional Strength and Hazard Emitters. Because, as I mentioned, this ship has a lower shield rating, so lower shield regen and lower overall shields than most of the other ships that I'll use for a beam tank build, I actually have emergency power to shields higher than emergency power to weapons. Simply because I need that extra resistance and extra base healing for my stuff, just so that it just feels better and it's easier to tank with. Normally, if this was a normal suggested beam tank, you would have emergency power to weapons higher than emergency power to shields for any science or engineer taking this type of build. But for this case, you really need emergency power to shields higher. Then of course I have reverse shield polarity 3 up here, simply because in this setup it's just the strongest one there. For my universal slot, I'm also putting another science team, simply because, as I said, this ship suffers on shields versus other tanks and things inside the game. So trying to compensate for that better will help. By the way, I also use attack power and delta because I do have those extra duty officers. No, that's the wrong thing. Because I have extra duty officers that that do amplify it by 100% whenever I'm using that. So I have 3 of them to get 300% extra threat generation, and then I have extra con officers to reduce those recharge times. These con officers are actually the things that cost a lot of money on the exchange. These guys are actually relatively cheap, but they're also relatively scarce on the exchange. You won't ever see very many of these guys on the exchange. I really wish there was more options for threat generation, but these are the only ones that really exist to enhance threat generation, outside of a guy that does a potential taunt whenever you're using projectiles, which is much more effective for science captains than for beam tanks. As I said, space traits and everything else in this is basically the same as my escort build that I showed later earlier this week, so that's not really necessary to talk about. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's basically about it for this build for today. Pretty short, but I thought it was important just to put this out today. Tomorrow, what I will be doing is later on in the day after the announcement has been given out, because by the way, in the 10-4 weekly video that was given out today, that was like about an hour or so long, they did mention a few times they will be releasing an announcement on Friday to help clarify the Tier 6 reputation, along with misunderstandings that came out as a result, including ones from me, for instance, in my Tier 6 video, thinking that we're going to have the option to have proton weapons as an actual viable build path. We won't. They clarified in the video today that it's only going to be one extra energy type per set reputation weapon. So like certain weapons will look at a certain extra weapon type. Not all of them are going to have all the other energy types inside of the game. And they aren't going to add anything else to the Dyson weapons or add proton weapons. They really should, but they don't want to. I think that's a wrong move on their part, but what can you do? What can you do? Yeah, on Friday I'll talk more about that as to why I was wrong. I'll show you the exact excerpts of those things myself. I'm sure other people will also be talking about this too. What I'm trying to do is just trying to give you the information as best as I can to help inform you as to what's going on, and to give you potentially good and what are currently good tank builds inside the game, different tanking strategies, and different consoles and things to think about in order to be able to survive and tank better inside the game. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want to get more content about these types of things inside the game. If you don't want to, totally cool as well. I do these videos because I just like to do them, and I feel that they might help some of you. So yeah, there's just that. Thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.